Marketplace is supported by the University of Illinois Geese College of Business, offering a fully online MBA program. Learners
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Lansing Charter Commission for April 1st, 2005. At this time, I'd ask the roll call, please.
Okay, Commissioner Adam Simon.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson. She said from the back of the room. Commissioner Bauer.
Here.
Commissioner Boyd. Commissioner Dowd.
Here.
Commissioner Jeffries.
Here.
Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Coe. Commissioner Washington. There are 9 members present. You have a quorum.
Motion would be in order to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
It's been moved and supported. Are there any changes, additions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the agenda is adopted. Now a motion be in order to approve the March 25th meeting minutes. It's been moved, supported. Any additions, changes, corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the minutes are approved. Now's the time for public comment.
Okay, first we have Darren Kaus, followed by Loretta Stanaway. And speakers will have 3 minutes to address the commission. Mohammed, can I have the...
You've got the most important piece of equipment here, man.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Darren Kalis. I am the Chairman for the UAW Bargaining Unit for the City of Lansing. I came here tonight just specifically to talk to you about an amendment that you guys are going to be looking at today. It's regarding Article 3, specifically 3-206, the investigations. There's some proposed language to add in after City Council, any person or committee authorized by it for its purpose. I was just a little bit concerned by that language as far as what that means. It's very open to who can do these investigations if council initiates something. It's not specific at all. The other issue is with Article 3-207, the rights and responsibilities of council members. There's quite a few additions to that, specifically the adds 4, 5, and 6. I think that language, it's giving city council the ability to call any city employee that it sees fit for an investigation, and they are city council can compel that person to be in attendance at the meeting. I see potential violations here, like labor law violations, Weingarten rights, Garrity rights, things like that. I think could be violated by bringing an employee here and questioning that person. I think the previous language that is in the charter is adequate. It covers what's needed for council to be able to do their investigations regarding legislative matters. So I also think that this language would get in the way of our CBA with the city and our grievance process and language like that. So just asking that you guys consider those amendments when you look them over tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Loretta Stanaway, followed by Linda Keith.
Good evening. I am here just to reiterate things that I have said before because I don't know that you guys retain the things that you hear all that well. So I'm going to talk about the city attorney situation again. I think that it is ludicrous and absurd and untenable to expect a city attorney to serve two masters. It's been that way forever and it's not worked forever. It's time to make a change. The city attorney should be working for the citizens, the city administration, and the mayor, and that is it. The city attorney should be appointed by the mayor and approved by the council. The council should utilize the funds that would have paid for another council member and hire themselves a legislative aide who would do the majority of the work that they currently flip over to the city attorney, mostly drafting and approving drafts of ordinances and changes in the regulations or whatever. And they would also hire their own on-retainer attorney who would work only for them, only when they need something beyond what the legislative aid can do. And it would be mandated that that attorney would be paid from city funds without any question or any arguments from the administration or mayor about it. So a city attorney that acts for the city and a legislative aide and a retainer attorney that acts for the council. Split them, make them fair, make them equitable, make them reasonable, and do it. Thank you.
Thank you. And next and finally, we have Linda Keefe.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I would like to address Article 5202, General Manager. As you know, I'm fully in support of the General Manager meeting with Lansing residents, ratepayers. Also, I do have a concern, though, about, I guess it would be your page 55, 5-206, the collection and hearing procedure. The Board of Water and Light proposal, I see that it's been struck out as far as reporting to the board and the mayor, that the rest of, and then having the city council apprised of the issues as well. I really believe we need to have checks and balances, particularly since many people are suffering with really high bills. And also, I do support the proposed changes to the sustainability department, well, under the Department of Public Service, as well as having a sustainability and environmental affairs board. And so, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now's the time for officers' report. Under the chair report, I did pass out at the beginning of the meeting a template that was prepared by Emery. This is the quorum call. We're suggesting that we start meeting now once every Tuesday through up to June and maybe possibly sometime during June to be able to get our work done. We're getting a little bit behind. We'll probably try to limit a little bit the time that each meeting takes and focus it more clearly on just a certain section of the charter. I think we work better that way. So the table that I handed out to you is kind of a fill in the blank where the yellow highlighted areas are the ones that will be added. If you could just put in, yes, you could make it, no, you can't, yes or no, and then sign your name somewhere on the sheet so we know who it's from. And then we'll put this together and we'll get back to you with the results. Yes, Mr. Bauer.
Mr. Chair, in terms of deadlines, when do we need to get this to the state because it has to be reviewed,
Yeah.
if we wanted to have any chance of getting it on the ballot in November?
Well, we were shooting for June 1. I think we have a little bit of leeway. I think, Attorney Riwa, do you want to comment on that? You've had conversations with the AG.
The AG's office did ask for as much time as possible. I think they're having some turnover in staff just so that they have enough time to review it. But I think, based on my calculations, if we got it done by July 9, that should give them more than adequate time for their processes of what their review says officially in documentation. So, but the more time we can give them, the better, because if they do have recommendations that come back, you all have to have time to review and make adjustments if you deem that necessary.
So that would be the time that they would just need 1 month to do that, because we need it back by first week of August.
That would be, they need a minimum of 12 Tuesdays, I think it was 12 Tuesdays before the election, which would be November. So again, earlier we can get them, the better.
Right. And Chris, that was first week of August.
Right, so, the issue comes if they make a recommendation, you need to make an adjustment. If you've taken it till July 9th, they might come back and you might not have very much time to make a correction or adjustment. So, I think the early June is definitely a good timeline to make sure that we're on target, and then we can react, we'll be able to react.
Commissioner Boyd?
I'm assuming if we have to make an adjustment, that then has to go back to them. So we have to allow for that back and forth, is that correct?
Technically, the Home Rule Cities Act only says that we need to send it to the governor. We don't technically have to wait for it to come back, but if you do want their blessing, particularly for after it comes back, then yes, that would need to happen.
Okay, any other questions? All right, Commissioner Washington?
Always the one. However, as much as I can sympathize with them having lack of staff, that's not our problem. They need to do what they need to do, and their staffing is not our issue. Also, I would say I understand that we want to have this rushed through for November. It doesn't have to be done this November. Keep that in mind. And I would prefer that we make sure, very sure, that we're not doing a sloppy job.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. Vice Chair report. Madam Vice Chair.
No report.
Clerk's vote.
I would just indicate that there are some late additions to the packet that came in after it was published. Those are in blue paper in the back of the commissioners' folders, and they are also for those at home. They are added to the online packet as well.
Thank you. Now we're to presentations. We have Charles Randall here, who is the internal auditor for the City Council, Lansing City Council. As you know, we had former council member Spatafor here talking to us about the audit committee that he was involved in, and we thought at that time it would be best to have the internal auditor to come down to do a small presentation to us and talk about their needs as we review the charter. So I will turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Good evening. Well, I appreciate you having me here today. This isn't so much as a agenda for me to look forward to having something closer. Okay. As something that I need out of the charter, this is more of a consultation type discussion. Let me introduce myself again. I'm Charles Randall. I'm a U.S. Army combat veteran. I was stationed in Germany during the Cold War when the Berlin Wall fell. I'm a U of M grad. I am a CPA and a certified information systems auditor. I've had 29 years of experience as an external auditor at Deloitte & Touche, an internal auditor at SEC in private companies and public organizations. I've worked at Ernst & Young in risk management consulting, and held various accounting positions from financial analyst to controller. My comments here are based upon my experience with clients large and small that have inherent risks and opportunities. I have obtained some feedback from previous internal auditors, but these comments here are mine alone. Again, this isn't an agenda for I want something in it. This is just recommendations for the committee to consider adding to it. The city charter section on internal audit generally contains the essence of the internal audit function. The organization of the topics can be a little confusing trying to read through it. There's a bit of repetitiveness to it, and there's some conflicting things inside of it, but by and large it has the essence of the internal audit function. You can tell that it's been modified many times over many years with much consideration to not taking out too much or adding just this one little thing in there. So I know that maybe section 0.3 has been added at least in the last 10 to 20 years, probably after the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, because it contains some internal control type discussion items in there. So the material's inside there, but it could use a rewrite. Overall, if we could update it to read as a risk management perspective as opposed to a list of tasks to do. Also refocus it at more of the 50,000 foot level of the governing body, the city council or board of directors. Included with the packet I had given is a Institute of Internal Auditors 3 lines model. That is a very good understanding of how internal audit works, not just with the governance body, but also with management as well to cover risks inside the organization. So I'd refer to that. Also, the IAA has model audit committee charters and internal audit charters that can be used as reference as well. Most of the key requirements inside of the IAA models are present already inside of this, such as the organizational placement and reporting is independence. It's spot on what is expected. The requirements as a professional, that's what's expected in there as well. The scope and access requirements to perform the duties are in there. Some of the tasks in there might be, again, dated, something that's been carried forward. It might be out of scope of an internal auditor type function and maybe more of a financial analyst type look. Let's see. If you want to include Lansing City specific items, I would ask that you begin with the end in mind and consider what value add you want the auditor to bring to something specific for the city. Again, would it be an audit of something or would it be a financial analyst? Inside of the document, the reporting lines for the governing body and management are as the IAA expects. We also have the clerk included in the distribution chain as similar to a board secretary to document it. And then I would ask that you consider sensitive reports that should not be filed with the clerk and become public information. There might be instances where it could be filed with the law or HR or something like that, but not requiring every report to go to the city clerk. The main purpose here is to ensure that the internal auditor's reports are not quashed or ignored when they're issued. Some of my preferences as a career auditor as having something inside of a charter is that the internal audit should actively participate in budget reviews and during management presentation of reports. This is to ensure that the internal auditor is aware of changes in the control environment. This helps the internal auditor develop a risk-based audit plan that is flexible to the changing environment that the organization is working through. And the other thing is that's usually not added is the internal auditor should report on the status of projects and audit issues as well. These are requested because all too often the internal auditor is off by themselves at the end of a hallway in a room by themselves with no window and not aware of what's going on in the company. So it's much better for us to be involved and understand what's going on so that we can be proactive in our audit schedules. I know it's been mentioned that adding a +1 to include with the chief audit executive, given the current size and complexity of Lansing, I would expect to possibly ask for one in fiscal year 2027, not for 26 yet. Also, I could see a request for IT outsource expert funding as well to help with general computer controls and things like that. So by and large, that's what I have. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions? Commissioner Bauer.
And I appreciate the chart, the information that you included. So, in the charter, it still says, obviously, the audit of all departments every year. And I remember years ago, when I think there were 3 staff people even, could never get through all the departments. So I think that's an issue. I assume it's the same now because of staffing. So what would you recommend?
So that's a rotational risk model where we make the assumption that the risks are still the same every year after year. They don't reduce. If you go through and you do an audit and you don't find issues, then it doesn't make sense to go back there and repeat the audits over and over again. You would only return if there's been a significant changes in the people, processes, or systems would warrant you to go back and re-audit something like that. So that's where a risk-based audit approach comes in, and you ascertain if, okay, do I need to go to this place? Do I need to check a box for rotation or not? For instance, here, I've begun auditing for the BS&A system because it's been newly implemented, as opposed to trying to go in and check a box of what the previous auditor has done, because it's a high-risk item. So that's what I would recommend, a risk-based approach.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering what, as we look at the charter changes, do we just eliminate because it's obviously hasn't been done for years and is probably impossible to audit every department every year. So that's one thing. The other thing that I think, if I'm reading this correctly, that you're consider adding final selection of tasks up to the internal auditor's sole authority, not subject to approval by administration or council leadership. Again, I think, I've been away from it a while, but I think the practice used to be that the council had in my day, a lot of direction about what would be audited. So can you talk a little bit about why you're recommending that switch?
Again, things may have changed a bit since then. The Institute of Internal Auditors recommends that the auditor own their audit plan so that they have buy-in in it, but they do consider the governing body's feedback as well. It depends on what your purpose is for the audit department. Is it for them to chart a path professionally inside the organization and audit the risks, or is it to identify, I don't know what they call them, gotchas or rumors and innuendos to say, hey, go check this out, go check that out. It could be what you want, but at the end of the day, we have to look at it as a high risk level picture. What's worth the auditor's time in looking at? Is it, $30 million spend on a new building, or is it the expense reports? I know where I'd spend my time.
Vice Chair.
Good afternoon, Mr. Randall. Thank you for making your presentation today. Now, as you stated before you made your presentation, that these are your suggestions, your recommendations. Would you normally discuss this with the municipal committee, audit committee before you make a presentation or make recommendations? Is that the standard practice?
I don't have to report to them.
Okay.
I've read inside the Audit Association, there's been similar committees as well.
Okay.
But there's not a requirement that the auditor report to them. I report to the president of the city council.
Okay.
They advise me a lot. They have professional experience and expertise, so they're they're very well respected for me to present ideas, bounce ideas off of, and get buy-in for new items to go forward with. I intended to have them review it in more time. I was only able to get it to them 24 hours in advance, so they weren't able to give me a lot of feedback, and I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cooey.
Good evening, Mr. Randall. Thank you for your service. I'm also a U.S. Army vet, served at the same time. We probably were in Germany at the same time. I was there when the wall went down also. Could you explain on the considerations that you gave? You put on here the consideration of adding internal auditor position as an ex facto member, the Lansing Board Water and Light Board. Can you kind of give me some background of why you proposed that?
Well, I've been hearing a lot of people suggesting more involvement in the BWL. I am on the ex officio member of the LEPFA board, and that gives me insight as to what their activities are going on, what risks they're addressing, what their activities, and what's going on. So I'm sorry, repeating myself. So if you would want more involvement or oversight into BWL, that's one possibility. Again, it would be ex officio, it wouldn't be a voting member, but it would be more having the understanding of what's going on, attending the meetings, and being present.
So it is in a way currently now that their own auditor and you do meet to go over what their findings are? So how would that change?
I do not currently meet with them. I haven't met with them yet. I've offered to sit down with them. It would be as part of, again, an ex officio board member there to listen, ask questions, give comments, but not to vote.
Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Randall. Who decides what you audit? Are you doing that independently?
I've gone through and done an assessment. There's the Municipal Audit Committee was recently stood up, and I presented them my audit plan. Most recent meeting, we had an addition of items on it as well. So they're taking my advice, considering it, and...
Are you taking their advice also?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, so do you go to them with what you want to audit? And I'm wondering, do you do an entrance interview, an exit interview? Do you go over the process people with the BS&A on what you have found and then bring it to council? Do you do policy audits? Do you do financial audits? Clearly, BS&A, I don't know if you've done any other audits other than BS&A, and I would assume you're still in the middle of that, right?
Yes, I am. You're talking about...
So, and I guess that's what I'm wondering too, is how much are you able to accomplish in a year?
It's still to be seen. I haven't been here quite a year. So I'm working diligently to get through it. As you said, there's different steps in the audit process, opening meetings, understanding of processes, identifying risks, identifying controls, having interviews, understanding and developing an audit plan, having opening meetings and closing meetings. So I'm wrapping up an audit right now. I hope to have a report out shortly.
Is that the BS&A?
No, it's a separate one.
Okay.
But the BS&A is still being worked on. There's still implementation hiccups going on with some of it, but I'm monitoring that as well. And again,
so is that a full-blown audit where you'll produce findings and recommendations and what's going wrong?
Yes, I have
Okay.
a sampling plan covering many different departments, and I have controls identified for the various controls that have been put into the BS&A system that I'll test.
Because my thought is this, I think probably in the city, there's enough to be audited. I worked in audit for years, and there's probably enough right here that you could do without being part of the BWL ex officio. You know, I just don't think that's necessary. They have their own auditors. But, so I guess I'm just curious more than anything else. I know you're relatively new, but it seems to me that you'd really kind of like to be like a Lone Ranger and just do your thing.
No,
I don't think that would be good for our charter.
No, I still report to the governing body. They are still the supervisors, the responsible party that I report to.
So the president and council.
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, hearing none. Just a quick question. In terms of the audit committee itself and its meeting, are they coming to a point where they're going to be making certain recommendations as to, say, for example, the section 3 that you were talking about, the duties and responsibilities that you have? Are they reviewing those and making recommendations as to those?
I don't know what's on their agenda.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right. If there are no other questions, I want to thank you for coming down, speaking to us. It was very helpful. And I think I would like to reach back out to Commissioner Spatafor, find out where the committee is and what their position is on some of these recommendations. I'll bring that back to you. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving down on the agenda, under old business, we will take up Article 5, and at this point, it'll be on the Board of Water and Light. We do have Mr. Peffley here, General Manager Peffley, and his team here to answer questions. So I guess I would turn this over to Attorney Rewa to kind of go over the communication that you gave us, and we'll go over the recommendations that we have to finish up in that section.
So, yeah, I'm looking at page 36 of your packet. We drafted some language consistent with the commission's discussions at the last, couple meetings. The first item here was a proposed additional language to require the general manager to hold a public meeting at least quarterly to interact with the public and ratepayers. So we developed language as to how that would be posted and things of that nature for your review and consideration. I think there was a communication from the Board of Water and Light that it was their understanding that this was an either or. So if the duration of the time for a rate was not going to be changed, then this was going to be sort of an alternative. But we drafted it so it didn't have to be. So that's, I guess, for you to discuss what you think is appropriate. I will also note this is a provision where, although the general manager reports directly to the board, this provision is a section where the charter itself is giving a directive to essentially the employee of that board, which we don't have in many other provisions except for, I would say, I guess, directing the mayor, other certain directors of departments to do things. So, any questions?
I would also note that in one of the late items, there is a communication from the Board of Water and Light in your packet. It's in the blue packet, in the blue. And it addresses this 5-202 as well as 5-205, some of the issues that they've responded to that. So as we review these, I'd like both of those, you to look at both of those documents. Commissioner Boyd.
Could I speak, Mr. Chair, on 5-202?
Yes.
I've thought about this. I've talked to staff about this. I think it's fine to have the general manager of the BWL meet with citizens. I think that's important. And I'm glad to see in their letter that they approve of the language. I, on the other hand, having worked in the public sector for a long time, know that quarterly meetings come up pretty darn quick. So my sense would be that either one of two things. One, if we're going to require that these meetings be conducted by the general manager, that they happen every 6 months as opposed to every 3 months, so they happen twice a year instead of 4 times a year. Or if they're to happen quarterly, which would be okay with me, and I think okay with the board, that it be the general manager or the general manager's designee. Just as when we were talking about city council meetings, I was the one who thought that the mayor shouldn't be required to attend the meeting because the mayor doesn't vote at the meeting. The mayor is there to listen and to answer questions. I don't think the mayor needs to be there. I think the mayor could appoint a designee to be there so that the council can get input from the administration. But just like that, I think that applies here. So I would not support this language as written, even though the board does, but I would like to see us either change it to be a meeting twice a year with citizens, or be quarterly with the general manager or the general manager's designee.
Do you want to make one of those a motion?
Well, let's start with twice a year. I propose that the general manager have these meetings twice a year as opposed to quarterly. So I'm proposing a change in the language as proposed by our staff attorney to say that the general manager shall hold a public meeting at least twice a year, blah, blah, blah. I so move.
Is there support for that motion? Commissioner Kui?
I had a question before.
Okay, go ahead.
Did you look at, sorry, did you look at the blue?
No, I
note
did.
Letter?
I did.
So with that proposal, you're talking about moving it to twice a year, biannually. Are you saying to suggest the current, about the language with the 3 non-voting? Are you agreeing with that also?
I agree that the non-voting members should not be members of the Board of Water and Light. Correct.
Just advisory as it's written? Then
That's not part of your motion.
That's not part of my
That's-
motion.
Yeah,
that's what I'm
I
asking.
figured
Yeah.
that would be a separate, thought we would
That's
deal with
not
that
part of your-
separately.
yeah, it's,
I
that
was
would,
just talking about the public meeting that the general manager would hold with citizens.
we can come back and address.
Come back, okay.
But I would like to address that because I
We'll do it separately.
I support it, and I think Brian, our chair, made the point at the last meeting about the potential conflict of interest with the city of East Lansing, looking to perhaps challenge the city of Lansing or the Board of Water and Light for its own financial purposes and the problems that could pose for the LBWL. So I'd like to talk about that, but it's not part of my motion here. My motion here is just on the meeting with citizens, which I think is important.
Is there, it's been moved and supported, Commissioner Washington?
I will say vote how you want, but I did talk to the general manager about this proposal before I ever brought it here, and he was actually in agreement with 4 times a year.
I understand that.
And the general manager being the one to do it.
I understand that.
Is there any further discussion? On the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed.
Fails. Want to try your second one?
I'll try my second
Okay.
one. My second one would be that the language be amended to say the general manager or the general manager's designee shall hold a public meeting at least quarterly.
Is there
I so move.
support? Commissioner Lopez? No. It's been supported then, correct, Commissioner Lopez? Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any discussion on this? Commissioner Washington?
Again, when I spoke to the general manager, the thought behind this is that the people don't feel as though they're heard. And it is important that the general manager, not as does his or her designee, be the one to address these public meetings so that the people are actually heard and they're actually going to the head of the corporation. I didn't just bring this before you without having thought and discussion and conversation with the general manager and what they thought also was best. So it's a matter of making sure the general manager is engaged and that people can get the straight answer in more than 3 minutes at the microphone. So again, vote as you will, but this is what I came up with after much thought and discussion and what the people are saying that they don't feel heard.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
On the amendment to add the designee as a possibility, Commissioner Dowd. Commissioner Jeffries.
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Cowee.
Yes.
Commissioner Washington.
No.
Commissioner Adam Simon.
No.
Commissioner Anderson.
No.
Commissioner Bauer.
Yes.
Commissioner Boyd.
Yes.
5 yeas, 4 nays.
Does
Motion's
pass.
adopted.
Any other motions? I believe there was a conversation about section .13.
You want to vote on it as amended?
Yeah, just a second.
That was amending it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. My apologies. Okay, it's been amended. Is there a motion to approve? Or- Okay, that is an amendment, so,
Yeah, we need to adopt it as amended.
well, I thought we were going to add another amendment.
To add.
Or,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Were you all understanding that as adopting the language as amended?
no,
Oh, they weren't.
no. Okay,
So I'd love to
so,
see a vote on it.
got it. Okay, sorry.
Oh.
Sir?
Okay, but it was her motion.
Yeah, but is there support? Yes. Okay, great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Roll call. This is to approve the 5-202 as amended.
Yeah,
All
no,
right.
we're understanding what she put out there.
Yeah,
We're voting on her amendment to the language.
we already.
No, we already voted
We
on
already
that.
voted on that, so this is to approve the language itself,
Approve the
the
language itself
whole,
with the change.
the whole
Okay, we
thing.
went backwards then. We should have went, but okay, that's fine.
All right?
Yes.
With the amendment. Okay. All right.
Okay, on adopting the provision as amended. Commissioner Jeffries.
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Cowee.
Yes.
Commissioner Washington.
No.
Commissioner Adam Simon.
No.
Commissioner Anderson.
No.
Commissioner Bauer. Commissioner Boyd. Commissioner Dowd. 5 yeas, 4
All right.
nays.
I'm used to.
So, if I can get to the language. Okay, so there was some discussion here about section 5-103, point 12, the deletion of that language. There was some, the information that we received from the board, that there was some indication on their part that the agreement to meet on these quarterly meetings was predicated on the fact that that point 12 would be deleted. Was that your understanding, Commissioner Washington?
Yes, that was.
Okay, good. So is there a motion? Or- This was the 3 non-voting member section that we've discussed about.
Yeah, that's not in the packet. That's, right, that's not in there.
That was not in the attorney's letter?
No.
Okay. So, but it was in the Board of Water and Light, it was referenced there, so that's what we were. Commissioner
So
Boyd.
I would like to move that the Charter Commission omit membership to the Board of Water and Light of the 3 non-voting members that was approved after the 2013 ice storm.
Okay.
For all the reasons that we talked about earlier and that you talked about, Commission Chair, at the last meeting, and I so move, that those 3 people, those 3 seats be eliminated
Yes.
from the Board of Water and Light Board. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, so that's section -103.12. You're making a motion to delete that from the city charter, that section. You all have that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. All right. Going to 5-205 in the attorney opinion.
Yep, so this is in the letter. This was incorporating some language to increase the amount of time of days between a public hearing and any adoption of changes to the rates. Not only would it change, so currently you have to have at least 30 days before the effective date between the public hearing and the change to the rate. This would increase that to 45. It also actually requires, instead of just one public meeting, for one public meeting in each ward, which would be now 5 meetings. There's some additional language to, I guess, dictate where and when those public meetings are held, so at different times of day, so that they're not all at, 9 a.m. or all at 1 p.m. And then the current charter says at least 45 days before the public hearing, the board files with the clerk a reason why the rates will change, and the proposal is to change the 45 to 60. We did, in terms of define what effective notice is, leave in the requirement about it needs to be published in the same way that the city publishes proposed ordinances, but then also notice shall be published as defined in this charter, which is that change to the language that you all developed to kind of encapsulate more, I guess, electronic modes of notice. We did provide an alternative last sentence, however, the top proposed language is just notice shall also be published as defined in the charter, but that language of publish is really specific to the city, whereas the ratepayers are more than people than just in the city, so we did offer some alternative last sentence language that would kind of has the spirit of how you sort of redefined publish, but have it apply to really the board service area.
Okay, on this language, is there any discussion? We talked about this. I think this was Commissioner Kui's concern.
The only, I just want to make sure you had 2 public hearing meetings, because you still spoke on the one in each ward, sorry, when you were talking about it. So it'd be 2 public hearings at various times of day. Am I correct?
It would be 5 public meetings, so you'd have one in each ward, and then they'd get scheduled. The idea here is that they would get scheduled at different times of day. So Ward 1 might be at 9 o'clock, Ward 5 might be at 7 o'clock, you know what I mean? That, at least, and if, that was the intention anyway. So if this needs to be clarified, or you think that there's a better way of saying that, let me know.
Commissioner Boyd?
I've read through this, and personally, I think that 2 public hearings is good. I appreciate and agree with all the new dates, and that there be more time for citizen input, et cetera. But I think to have one in each ward is more than is needed. I think 2 public hearings at different times of day, et cetera, would be fine.
I guess, I would ask what the understanding, I'm a little confused as to what the understanding of the Board of Water and Light is of this. Wherever you want. Whatever's most comfortable. Oh, my, he's walking in. Okay.
Oh, are you supposed to take the podium?
Welcome.
Thank you. Our understanding was from the commission that they want us to have an extra meeting at a different time so that we weren't doing them all at night. And we have zero heartburn with that. We didn't have any discussions about meeting each ward. I think that's problematic. We're not, that's just something I'm not really a fan of. Also, there was a lot of discussions on notification, how to be notified. No heartburn there either. We've learned a lot of lessons from the last one. But I think meeting each ward would be problematic. And I think Assistant General Manager Shaw has something to say too.
Thank you. And it was our understanding that with the 4 additional meetings that was passed, one of them, we would time closer to the rate hearing. So if we had 2 public rate hearings and then one of the 4 quarterlies in that time frame. Because our Board of Commissioners would be required to be there as well, so.
And we've actually already started putting together quarterly meetings, which will probably be more than that, I'll be honest with you when it's done, but because our intent was there, if the 3 non-voting commissioners no longer have a seat, that their constituents, our customers, need to be involved, and I can't do that with quarterly meetings because I need to reach each one of the townships, and that would be a time to discuss rate hearings too, so I think there'll be a lot more, but as far as each ward, that might be a little more problematic for us.
Just want to make sure I'm understanding. So at top of your regular quarterly scheduled meetings that you're proposing to have that we passed, you would also have 2 meetings at different times of the day. So people that got off at 5 could go, or people that are off during the day could go. If we were to do 2,
Yes.
with still a total of possible 6 meetings within a year.
Yes, that's our understanding, and we have no concerns with that. The one thing is that the scheduled rate hearings, the 2 of them, the one that we're adding, that's a Board of Commissioner rate hearing. The quarterly meetings would be done by me, but I can speak on the behalf, the rate strategy is recommended by my staff anyway. So I just want to make sure that you understand the commissioners would not be at those, now they can attend, but it wouldn't be a formal board meeting because our intent is to take those meetings to where our customers are at. So, Delta will no longer be represented. I'll be going there, DeWitt, Delhi, and so forth, East Lansing. So just trying to be clear.
So at those quarterly meetings, would you recommend that the people come to those ones that where the board is, if there's a proposed hike, so they have some recommendation in those meetings how to follow?
Yes, and I would see no reason that their recommendation, since they're going to get more face time than 3 minutes at a microphone, that they could bring those to me, and it'd be my job and staff's job to capture those comments and relay those comments to the official board meeting where the board chair sits. So I think that vastly more input would be received and put into the record for future rate strategies. That's our intent from what we're hearing here.
Thank you.
And can I just? Yeah, sorry, one more thing. And these new meetings would be in addition to our every other month committee meetings, Committee of the Whole, Finance Committee, HR as needed, and then, of course, our full board meetings as well. So this is in addition to those that are public.
So if I understand correctly, then we're doing a total of 6 or 5?
New would be 5. So the 4 quarterly is general manager or now designee, informational, not a public meeting where there's limited to 3 minutes for public comment. So the 4 quarterly, and then 1 additional for the rate setting process. So a public rate hearing, we already are required to do 1. So if it's approved to add 1 more,
okay.
2 for the public rate heading or process,
Yeah.
rate hearing, separate processes.
Okay.
Yep, so 5 new meetings in addition to our every other month
Okay, got it.
meetings as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Bauer.
And I would assume that at a rate increase hearing, you might get different people than you wouldn't necessarily get the same people. You would have people who obviously that is a huge issue to them, which we've heard over and over. So, and we have been only doing 1, is that correct?
Correct. Per charter, yep, we're required to do 1, so we would add 1 for the rate hearing process.
We would do
2 dedicated, and then the recommendation would be 1 of the 4 new information meetings. 1 of those could be timed in that period with the public meetings, more as informational, so we could time 1 of those 4 is an option. And the rate hearing process is not typically every year either.
Well, that's what's going to be my next question. So on the average, how often do you do look at rate increases? 18 months, 2 years?
Yeah, we look at them every year. The last two strategies were 2-year strategies, so the community and business can plan to know what's coming the following year. So that's been our strategy going forward.
Okay, so the language that was submitted by the Board of Water and Light, I think they amended that. I mean, it's the same as what is being proposed with the inclusion of the expanded notice language, but they inserted 2 public hearings instead of 1. Yeah.
That's, I agree with that.
Okay, so,
And I have a question, not to throw a wrench into it. We agreed to 4 meetings a year or quarterly meetings?
It was 4 quarterly meetings in addition of 3 hearings.
Yeah,
4 meetings.
I have an amendment, my own amendment, I guess.
Okay.
It might make more sense that you say 4 meetings a year, because if you're having a rate strategy, I'd like to hit every one of our constituents during that time frame, so they wouldn't be exactly in a quarter, because only one of those quarterly meetings will line up with the rate strategy. But if I'm trying to go to the outlying, our customers outside the city, which is 50% of our rate base, if you hit all of those during a time frame, I'm just saying that if it doesn't give heartburn, 4 meetings, but the spacing might be better if we had some flexibility on how to hold those. But I can definitely, with quarterly, it just came to my thought when you're talking about more education during a rate cycle.
Well, currently it states the board shall conduct at least 2 public hearings, at least 45.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're referencing the section we just passed that talked about.
Yeah, the one you just passed, so I guess I'm not looking to go backwards. I can make this work.
Thank you. You've cleared this up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so
Okay, yeah, we get him.
back on 5-205.2, is there a motion to accept this, or first we would, I think, need to amend to say at least 2 public hearings?
Yes.
I would so move as supported by the letter outlined from the LBWL. LBWL.
Is there support for that?
Support.
Well,
So let me be real clear. What we're going to do is just delete 1 and insert 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And
But
all right,
you need to remove the
that's-
ward language.
This is a different paragraph. Words are not in there.
It says right
Oh.
there. It's right there.
No, it isn't.
Oh, in each, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
Okay.
That's fine.
Yes,
So it should be, the
It
board
would
shall
be-
conduct at least 2 public hearings at least 45
days.
days prior. That's the
okay.
language.
Is that, Commissioner Boyd? Is that, okay? I mean, do you support that? Okay, is there support?
Yes.
Yes, moved and supported. Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, just clarification. So those 4 meetings, we're talking in Lansing, right? Or are you saying 4 meetings for the whole area?
The whole area.
Or your customers? I'm sorry?
In the service territory, the thought was that since 3 seats are being lost, and one of those seats rotates every year, that the outlying customers would not get the input they currently get, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So that's where the meetings would, everybody would be invited, they'd be posted, but they would not be at the boardroom. I want to take this out to where we can get to the customers.
All right. Just wanted that clarified. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay, Commissioner Washington.
I'm going to be voting no, because I think with all of the 4 meetings and the commission, Board of Commission meetings, I don't think we need 2 ratepayer meetings, so I'll be voting no. I'm voting no. I think we only need.
Okay.
That I understand, but
My
could you
opinion
explain why?
is with all of the quarterly meetings or 4 meetings and the Board of Commissioners meetings and everything else, I don't think we need to have 2 ratepayer public hearings, because trust me, everybody will be talking about the rate paying at every meeting before then. So I will vote no.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, on the amendment, where we're deleting 1 and inserting 2 and taking out in each ward, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 8-1. Are there any other amendments? Commissioner Anderson.
I'd like to move that we amend the last sentence and replace it with the alternate last sentence that was provided.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. There was the additional language on the second sentence, the hearing shall be held at different times of the day to maximize the opportunity for public attendance. Oh, a different time, oh,
Yes. So remove notice shall also be published as defined in this charter. Replace that with notice shall also be published by posting to the city's and the board's website, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah, I'm talking about this. Oh, all right.
That's what we voted on, correct?
All right, it has it before as amended. I'll get it at some point. Is there a motion to support, to move? Been moved and supported? Okay, I heard you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Anything else? Anyone? Okay, we've got, did we get any information back at all regarding the return on equity language?
Yes, I did receive some proposed edits to our proposed language late this afternoon. I presume you guys had not seen that yet.
No.
I would recommend that we wait then, and then
Okay.
we give you the proposed language I received from the Board of Water and Light and the City Attorney's Office, which I've reviewed, and it does look appropriate, but I want you to look at them both and
Okay.
have a discussion.
All right, we'll bring it up next week. And then that stuff, okay. Then finally, in 5-206, next page, point 3, there was a proposal to delete from the hearing officer on language, and I think you had an opinion on that?
Yeah, so initially when I was reviewing that, I had a concern because a version I was looking at was in a letter and it had removed the sentence, "The procedure shall incorporate the designation of an independent hearing officer." But the actual red line that the BWL had provided had left that in. And so my concern was alleviated by looking at the right version. So I don't have any legal issues with the proposal. It's really just a matter, I think, of practice or I guess, policy of whether you think removal of the reporting requirement to the mayor and the city council is important to you. But functionally, it really doesn't change the process available to the people contesting the service or rates, or, excuse me, not rates, services or their bills.
Are there any questions? Commissioner Boyd?
So you're telling us that whether we leave this language in or not makes no difference?
I mean, legally, I don't think it does. I think there's a discussion about whether you think it's important for the board or the independent hearing officer to have to report what they have done as a result of these hearings, outside of normal public processes of just it being a public record that's available. So I think that is an issue of whether you think that's important. In terms of due process to the people that may have concerns with their bills or anything, I have no issues with the proposed change.
For the record, I support less paperwork.
Okay. Commissioner Bauer?
And my question would be, with the original language in the charter, does this happen? I mean, is this even a practice where there's a report to the mayor?
I'm going to defer to our legal counsel because he handles that, Mark.
Again, just wondering, as so many things have changed in the last 50 years, is this even a practice that is ever done?
In my experience, it has not happened. These disputes are generally resolved before they get to a hearing, and so we have not had to report to the mayor or follow this procedure. It just hasn't happened.
They control that in the back.
Oh, okay. So you're indicating that these hearings have never happened?
In my tenure with the board as general counsel, about 6 years now, no, it hasn't happened. Hasn't
Manager
been
Presley, do
necessary.
you know of any that have happened?
I do not. It's, as the general counsel said, that they're resolved before they get to that. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
If it made it that far, we would follow the charter.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Bauer? Did you get Commissioner Anderson? No? Oh, I thought you were going to go for the hand up. No? All right. Sorry. All right. With that, is there a motion to move to strike the language that is presented to us? It's been moved. Is there
I support.
moved and supported? Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll get to the final language next week, and then you're done.
Thank you for your hard work.
Yeah. All right. Why don't we change this up just a little bit? We have the city attorney in our house tonight, Greg Venker. He is here tonight. We have some language regarding the city attorney's office. He's agreed to answer any questions that you may have. And I would offer him an opportunity to do a presentation. I know not tonight, but in the future, if you want to come down before us, you're certainly welcome to do so. Attorney Rewall, why don't you start with your opinion or your memo, and then we'll go from there. That's on page, I think, 47?
49 is the
49.
memo.
Oh, pages have changed.
So the memo, which may start at 47 or may start at 49, depending on when you printed, has some language developed based on conversations that the commission has had over the past couple weeks regarding the city attorney. First up is the removal of the city attorney. What we did here was develop some language that would allow either the mayor or city council to remove the city attorney, but there's essentially a veto of the other branch. So the city council could actually vote to remove the city attorney by a 2/3 vote, which could be vetoed by the mayor and vice versa. Just a note on some of the proposed language at the very end of that. It says a suspension or removal by the mayor is subject to veto by city council as provided in 4-401. So we just refer back to how the mayoral veto works. When we're talking about the veto of the city council, it says you follow the process as defined in section 3-305, except section 3-305.3 shall not apply. So when with a mayor, when the mayor vetoes, the way the process works is city council takes an action, a resolution, ordinance. The mayor can then veto it, and then the city council can then veto the veto, can override the veto by a 2/3 vote. This is drafted to draft that out because you're already requiring a 2/3 vote of the commission to even remove the city attorney to begin with. So you essentially have 2/3 a veto and then 2/3 vote again, which practically someone could change their mind, but it didn't seem to make sense to have that override in that case, so.
Discussion? Commissioner Washington.
So are you saying that the mayor's veto should be the final step and that council wouldn't have the opportunity to override that veto?
Correct, if it's a true veto like that, yep.
Other comments, questions? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said I'm just a little confused. I guess I'd like someone to elaborate a little bit more about what this proposed language would do, because I look at the proposed language on the city attorney, city council attorney, it's all confusing to me. So if you could just go through the proposed language for section, or Article 4, Section 304, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
So currently, let me back up a second too. So what is the current status quo of how the city attorney is removed? So currently, the city attorney can be removed by the mayor, but like any other department head, section 4-401 applies, which means the mayor can suspend or remove, but then within 30 days, the city council can actually reinstate a department head with a 2/3 vote if they decide it's in the best interest for the city. So this proposed language that we have drafted here would allow either the mayor or city council to be the one to remove the city attorney. But it also provides that the other branch the ability to veto that decision. So if the mayor is the one removing the city attorney, a 2/3 vote of the city council could rescind that. Vice versa, if the city council is the one that removes the city attorney, and that has to be by 2/3 vote, the way this is drafted, then the mayor could actually veto that decision. So you essentially need both, they both need to put their key in there one could actually get rid of the person, but it could be overridden is how this is working. That's how it's, instead of, I've seen some language in other cities where they actually require both to sort of approve. That can be problematic if it's a situation on a removal, but this would allow that sort of release valve to allow the other branch to disagree.
Thank you.
So and if you want me to go through just what the other two topics are?
Sure.
Okay.
Go right ahead. Thank you.
So the other topic that we've developed language for is on a city council attorney. So this is not the city attorney. This would be an attorney for city council. And I will say too, when you're looking at this, I do think that section B and section C are kind of similar. So you may want to look at them both together to decide whether you want one or both of those. But there was some discussion about having essentially a standing attorney for the council, like all the time on retainer or staff or something like that, just to serve city council in their endeavors. So we did develop, we were unable to find any language in any other charter that has that specifically, but we did develop some language looking at some of the, I guess, analogous language elsewhere.
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
You could not find any other languages. Are you telling us then that no other city allows their city council to hire an outside attorney?
No.
What you're telling us?
Having like a standing, like having essentially two attorneys all the time. So having a city attorney essentially on staff, but then having like a city council attorney always on staff.
All right, so that you could not find any support for?
Correct.
And based on that, you're telling us that there are no other communities in the state that have city council attorneys on standby?
Not necessarily on standby, that's a different issue, but like having essentially corporate having legislative counsel all the time.
Okay.
Or someone specifically designated all the time.
What you're saying. Thank you.
But we did develop some language. So that proposed language is the city council may hire or retain an attorney of its own selection other than and in addition to the city attorney on such matters involving the council's official duties and for such periods of time as they may deem necessary for the best interest of the city. We did provide a little bit of guidance in terms of the city attorney must be, the attorney must be licensed to practice law in Michigan and shall not represent the city as a municipal corporation in any legal proceeding. And the attorney shall serve at the pleasure of city council. We did think, to the extent that this is language you thought was important, that we clarify in terms of who's representing the municipality. There shouldn't be any dispute between who those two attorneys are. That needs to be the city attorney.
Right, and not to beat a dead horse, but this proposed language is language that would be unique to Lansing that no other community has.
I believe so, yes. We could not find anything like that. Now, when we look at section C, this is city council may hire outside attorney. Now, this is pretty common across a lot of charters in Michigan. And in fact, the proposed language that's kind of been offered before and as in here is President Jeffries had offered from the city of Pontiac. So you can take a look at that. But we provided several examples of other cities that have other language to this extent. And again, it's pretty common to allow the city council to hire independent counsel, usually for a limited amount of time, usually to deal with something specific that they're dealing with. So for example, the language in the proposed charter language would be to respond to a subpoena, or if there is a sort of conflict and there's an issue that arises between council and the mayor on some issue, or there's just some special matter that's before the city that the city attorney may just need a particular assistance on because of it's a very, specialized area of law or something like that. So we provided a variety of language for that, and specifically the proposed language is that of Pontiac's option of counsel. So,
if I might ask you a question right there. One of the things we talked about is that a previous council, I don't even know when it happened, allegedly hired outside counsel to take care of something, and then they were not paid by the city of Lansing because there was no provision to pay them. So that work became pro bono, I guess. So my question is, this language doesn't include any provision for mandatory payment for that outside counsel, correct?
It does not.
But again, if we have it added into the charter, would it not be part of the city to cover that because it is part? If we were to adopt that language.
Just so I'm clear, are you talking about the Pontiac
If we were to adopt
language?
the Pontiac language, proposal C, and since we added into the charter as part of that, I would accept that since it is part of the city's charter, that the city should be paying that because it is part that it is an option that they have to do. So why wouldn't he not be covered as far as paying for it because we have added that additional coverage?
I would agree. I don't know all of the facts and circumstances of the prior situation, but it seemed to me the current version of the charter actually authorizes the city council to approve hiring a different council for some reason. So again, without knowing all the facts and circumstances, I don't know that you actually need to put that in the charter to the extent that there is a contract and their services rendered. There are certainly things that could be done, notwithstanding what's in the charter. But I will say this language I think is much more affirmative than what currently exists because it positively states city council may hire, whereas I think the current language is a little more implicit. So I think that you're on much better standing. I could not find any language specific about you shall pay your legal bills and where it's paid from, because it may also depend on the nature of the legal issue as to how that bill gets paid. And that's kind of an internal accounting issue, how it actually gets paid. So
would it behoove us to add maybe additional language as far as the payment, or is it something that city council can handle themselves as an ordinance?
I think it's something that city council can handle themselves, because to the extent that they are hiring legal counsel, there's going to be there'll be a resolution approving, there'll be a contract, and then you've got, contract law and things of that nature. So I don't think it's strictly speaking necessary. And like I said, we did look for that language, to see if any other cities got to that level of granularity, and we couldn't find any in other charters, so.
Well, and I was around during those days, and the argument, the logic given was that the city council did not have the authority to hire an attorney. So however the mayor interpreted the charter before, that mayor, so I agree that this language is much more, what was the word you used?
It's like positive or affirmatively
right. And so I think that in terms of the payment, that may take care of it, because I don't think paying your bills should be someplace, and that's an anecdotal, well, not anecdotal, it happened, but I don't think you add a sentence because of something that happened. But I have one more question, but why don't we, Commissioner Washington, and I'll come back, it's a different. But the bigger issue, and there really isn't an answer, I don't think, is that, okay, so it happens from time to time, maybe often, the mayor has a different opinion, gets sent the council on an issue. So the council now has legal authority through the charter. They hire an attorney. That attorney's opinion says X. The city attorney's opinion says Y. You're back at, where does that dispute get resolved? And again, it doesn't belong in the charter, but I'm just very curious. Or Councilmember Jeffries, as an attorney, would it have to go to to a court?
That's a good question.
Potentially. Commissioner Washington?
Yeah, I think then it goes to court. My thing with this about, excuse me, about the payment is, yes, council has the authority to hire an outside counsel, but the argument is if it's not spelled out here, and I can think of a mayor that may have made this, this argument is then council needs to pay for the attorney out of their budget. Council doesn't have a budget for outside attorneys. That's where I think we could come into problems with not specifying that it needs to be paid and from where.
Well, I just to comment off that real quickly, I think the bottom line was there weren't 6 votes there on council to override anything or to demand anything. And so I think that's what it all boils down to. Commissioner Lopez?
Yeah, there would be probably an item that council, if they wanted to put money aside for legal services, to be in the budget, just in case they need it. If they use it, fine. They don't use it, fine. But then again, you have everything's pulled in the budget, right? So will the council make that? They can. They can do it, but it's the willingness of the council to put that in the budget. So the authority's there.
Well, Attorney Venker, do you have?
I have.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Boyd?
You mentioned, Commission Chair, that the city attorney is in the audience.
Yes.
I'd like to hear from the city attorney. This all seems to be predicated on the fact that who does the city attorney work for? I'd kind of like to hear from the city attorney what the city attorney thinks. So, and I realize that this city attorney is just one person. We don't know what previous city attorneys said and what future city attorneys will say. But thank you for being here and for coming down and
certainly
answering questions. And if I might, Commission Chair, I guess I'll kick it off and just say, Mr. Attorney, I'd like to know who you think you work for.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I'll answer that in one moment.
Thank you.
My name is Greg Venker. I'm the city attorney. I've been the city attorney here. I was confirmed, I think, in May of last year. I've worked in this office for I'm approaching 8 years this summer. And just as a bit of background, before that, I lived in the state of Wisconsin. Boo, hiss. I'm from none of these places. But when I was there, I worked as a state prosecutor for 6 years doing crime stuff, and then 3 years in civil practice before moving to Michigan. My wife works at Michigan State, which is what brought us here. And so that's sort of my background as an attorney.
Thank you.
Also present with me is Lisa Hagan-Lawrence. She's my chief deputy city attorney. I won't make her go through a full bio unless
And
you
your name
particularly want
again?
to.
I'm Lisa Hagan-Lawrence.
Lisa, thank you.
Could you pull the mic just a little closer to you? That might help.
Sure.
Thank you.
So who do I work for? That's a great question. We talk about it fairly frequently. I work for the City of Lansing as a corporate entity. So the mayor is the chief administrator, the chief executive of that corporation, but my client is the corporate body of the city. I interact with the mayor a fair amount. I interact with the council members a fair amount because they are the governing body, right, of the corporation. But really, and your attorney can talk to you about this too, but from a Michigan rules of professional conduct, are ethical canons that guide us and direct us how to be lawyers and be good at it, or at least be ethical about it. My client is not a person. My client is an organization. It's an entity, and my obligation is to make sure that the client, as the corporate client, is operating legally, is operating efficiently, and that the tasks of the client are getting the tasks of the corporation are being completed correctly. Go ahead.
Have you ever had an instance when the mayor gave you direction and the council gave you a different direction? And if so, how did you handle that?
That's interesting. It's not often that I get, so the council, as it relates to, I'm bound by the charter just as much as the mayor and the council are bound by the charter. So the charter says what the council gets to do, right? And the charter says what the mayor gets to do. So, for example, just as the council cannot call the chief of police and say, go arrest that person, the mayor can't really either, but just for the purposes of our discussion here, the council doesn't have the ability to direct an officer of the city to go do a thing. Similarly, they couldn't necessarily call me in. I mean, the council as a whole body can discuss and pass a resolution saying we want this thing to happen, but no council member could call me in and say, go sue that guy or go sue that woman. That's just not how corporate governance works. That's not how the charter structure works. That's not how any of it works. So in terms of competing, I guess, initiatives or competing desires, it's not typical that the mayor is giving me a directive to do a thing and that the council is giving me a directive to go contrary to that thing. That hasn't exactly come up. What usually, like where the tension usually arises, and we talk about this, you know, it is certainly challenging to answer to both the mayor and also the city council, but from my perspective, that's absolutely, while challenging, necessary for the job because my client is the city. And if the mayor wants to do a thing that he can't do, I say, you can't do that. And if the council wants to do a thing that they can't do, I have to say, you can't do that. And oftentimes, nobody likes the answer that I give them, but that tension is when the mayor thinks that one thing should happen this way and the council thinks that that thing should happen a different way. And then I get to go pour through the books and read through the charter and read through prior opinions and prior court cases and see what the most correct version of that is.
Thank you.
Other questions? I know you've seen the memo
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
You know, it changes, if all this was implemented, it would change the office quite a bit.
Sure.
So how do you see that? I mean, what's the pitfalls, what's the benefits?
Sure. And I'm prepared to speak on most of this, well, much of this, but if there are other questions or if this spills over, I'm happy to provide further feedback. Looking at the sort of the A, B, and C, I will say no one loves to contemplate their own demise, right? But I can sort of pull myself out of that. I'm a bit of a government nerd. The language regarding suspension or removal by the mayor or by a 2/3 majority of council, I don't necessarily see a problem with that. I mean, I'm quite fireable by the mayor right now with very little recourse, to be perfectly honest. The only sort of modification that I would make, and I think that there's, whether this would apply to just the city attorney, which I understand that's one of the only positions that's appointed and then confirmed. But I do think, just as notes, I think that it would be appropriate to add city attorney may be suspended or removed for cause. These are mostly just due process things. That's very similar to the way that the language is in the charter as it relates to removal of council members. And then similarly, second sentence, notice of such action shall be filed with the clerk. And then I would add, and I can send the language, I'm happy to, but just a statement that upon request and before final action for suspension or removal, the city attorney shall be entitled to receive in writing the reasons for the proposal or the proposed act and the right to a hearing. And that's just basic due process stuff. That's not anything beyond that, just to make that a more complete section.
So if I could ask,
Sure.
so in terms of your contract you currently have, how does this impact that? I mean, is it consistent or inconsistent with?
Oh, that's interesting. It's technically inconsistent. I guess my contract would have to change because I can't have you can have a contract that's contrary to the charter, but only until the contract ends, and then the charter would control. So currently, the way my contract, all the department directors are given one-year contracts. So I'm a year-to-year employee, and I'm terminable at will at the moment. So the thing that would change is there would have to be some reflection in there that mayor can terminate me or council can, make the recommendation to terminate me.
All right. Okay.
Looking at the city council attorney, like a standing attorney for the city council, I would say, I looked also, I don't know that that exists anywhere in the state of Michigan. That gives me pause only because there's a dumb lawyer joke where a lawyer moves to a town and he's the only lawyer in the town and he's not eating much and he doesn't have a whole lot to do. And then the second attorney moved to town. And boy, did they get along great. I'm afraid that if there was a attorney for the council persistently, a lot of time and energy would be spent, I hope not, but my fear is that a lot of time and energy would be spent bickering back and forth. I agree, so setting aside B for a moment, the changes that I would make to B are mostly to make it more consistent with the language that's proposed in the C section. Because I think that is consistent with the way a lot of other municipalities operate. And although I wasn't here, the instance that everybody's talking about in the past, I know certain members here were council members when that happened. I was not here, but I do know the background of that, and it was that there was an assertion that the council didn't have the ability to hire that attorney in that instance, and that was part of the problem about how the person didn't get paid. I think that having a more clear statement of how the council may hire an attorney, and I will say the only modification that I would make or propose to the language in here, the proposed language under C, which is mostly an adoption of what Pontiac utilizes, I think it would be helpful to clarify that such attorney would be hired when there's a conflict identified, a conflict of interest identified between the council and the mayor, just because that's really the basis for a lot of the other provisions that other cities use for this. And I also would invite something in here that indicates that the council or the city, through a vote, has requested an opinion of the city attorney first, and then having received that, wants to go get their own. And I think that's consistent with how other municipalities have done this. Just to be clear about that, when we're talking about that, because our office gets asked a lot of questions, opinions about various things. We get asked from other departments, we get asked from the entire council, we get asked from individual council members. I do think it needs to be very clear that when you're talking about the council hiring an outside attorney, that it must be an opinion that was requested by the council, not by an individual council member. Because if you're talking about a conflict of interest, the conflict of interest is that the council acts as a body. And so the conflict of interest needs to exist between the body of the city council and the executive authority of the mayor. Okay. And I think a majority vote of the council requesting an opinion and then saying, okay, well, let's go get a lawyer, is probably the cleanest way to do that.
I am curious.
Commissioner Boyd.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I am curious that you are supporting, in general, the language in Section C, but I think Commissioner Bauer has raised a very good question. How does this get resolved? I mean, if the council hires outside counsel and CIL versus, whatever, SEL, how does it get resolved? I mean, if that attorney goes against your opinion for the city, then what? Then how does it get resolved? And that is of concern to me. I think it's a very good question.
Sure. I'll say it depends. It depends on what the matter is that we're talking about, right? If it's a matter of internal process and practice, it might end with some kind of compromise with two dueling opinions. I hope that most of the time, I try to get the right answer. I don't try to get an answer that appeases one person or somebody else. I care very much to get the right answer. So it would be my hope that if I give an answer or some other city attorney gives an answer and then council says, let's go get our own version of that, that it comes back probably pretty similar. That would be my hope. Now, if it's really different, or if you're talking about a situation, and I'll point to Detroit's Detroit has a whole section of their charter that talks about how they will sue themselves, because Detroit fights with itself quite a bit. And I don't invite that to Lansing. I note that this talks about, hiring an outside attorney because some apparatus of the city is suing the council for something. And I really don't think that we need to get there. We have managed to avoid that rather successfully. And I think that, again, with us being a city of this size, we're just big enough, but still just small enough that everybody is within the corporation and acting in the best interest of the corporation.
Commissioner Chair, I have two questions, and I promise they'll be brief.
All right,
First
I'm
of
gonna
all,
hold you to it.
the first question goes to what you just said. Right now, this language says where the council is seeking enforcement of a council subpoena or order suing blah, blah, blah. You're suggesting that that language is too specific. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and again, because if the council were seeking enforcement of a subpoena, I don't know who the council would be subpoenaing that the city attorney wouldn't be representing that action. Does that make sense?
But what this does is sort of lays out under certain circumstances under which the council could hire outside counsel.
Sure.
And what you're suggesting is that maybe this language shouldn't be that specific.
Yes, I think if we're talking about Detroit's, or are you saying specifically within the proposal? Yes, okay.
And then I want to go back to my
Yes.
original question, because I think that's at the heart of what this discussion is all about, and that is who you work for. And you outlined before that if the mayor asks you to do something and it's not within the mayor's authority, you tell the mayor that, so you go against the mayor. And same with council, the current council. But have you ever had a circumstance where the mayor said, I don't care, do it anyway? Because that is at the heart of what we're talking about here. We've been approached by council and others to suggest that you don't work for the city, you work for the mayor. And that creates a problem for the council. And so I kind of want to know, and I realize you're just one person, that, your position could change. Somebody else, Lisa could take your job, you could go someplace else, you could go back to Wisconsin for all I know.
No.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
Has there ever been that situation? I mean, are we just talking about hypotheticals, or is this a real problem?
To the specific question posed, this mayor, since I've been the city attorney, has never asked me to do something to which I have said no, either because that's either not supported by law, or he doesn't have that authority, or I can't do it ethically. That has never come up, and I hope that it never comes up. If that happened, I would be in a position, this is Greg Venker, no longer city attorney, this is Greg Venker, the human being and the lawyer that actually takes his oath to follow ethical canons very seriously. If my client directed me to do something that I knew was wrong, illegal, or otherwise, I would have to resign, which really stinks to think about, but that's what I would do. Because I can't pursue something that I know is illegal. I get in trouble for that.
Sure. All right. Other questions? I would like to follow up on the one issue that Commissioner Bauer brought up with the conflicting opinions.
Sure.
And I think the example that I'm looking at is the pension boards here in Lansing. They've got their own attorney. Mm-hmm. And I know the city attorney sits in on their meetings, and from time to time, there's whose opinion. Mm-hmm. And, the discussion is if you don't, or the point is, if you don't follow the city attorney's opinion, there may be personal liability to the members if they don't do that. So how do you see the situation where if there's a conflicting opinion between council and the administration, you take one side, they get their attorney, they take the other side, and for whatever reason something blows up and there's liability to the city, what do you say the council's position would be if they were on the losing end?
That's a great question. I will say, just back up to the pension boards for a moment. I mean, that's the pension system and the evolution of law as it relates to that is really interesting because now they do have their own attorney, and there was a change in state law that really permitted that to take place.
Okay.
And at least as it relates to the pension board, I will say that they are a semi-autonomous entity, right? So when their attorney, the city attorney may give them advice if they seek it, but the city attorney's, like my job, our office's job is really to protect the city's interests as it relates to the pension board. And so if their attorney tells them something, whatever their attorney tells them, that's going to be what controls them in that moment. To your question, where you're talking about, right, and just for everybody's benefit, there's a sort of maxim that applies for public servants that if they have been advised that an action or an activity that they want to embark upon is ultra-virus outside of the scope of their powers and authorities, if their attorney has advised them of that and said, hey, you can't do this, and then they do it anyway, they're opening themselves up to not just the sort of political backlash or even possibly being sued in their political capacity, but they're opening themselves up to civil liability, being sued in their personal capacity. So money that you have to give up for doing a thing you shouldn't have done. I say that's a really interesting question because I think what would really be at issue if you've got two competing opinions, the attorney having advised the public servant, the elected officer, that if they do this, that's not okay. This is contrary to this ultra-virus outside of your scope of authority. That doesn't automatically open them up to personal liability. It sort of paves the path for potentially personal liability. If you've got competing opinions as to whether or not this act was ultra-virus, I think that if somebody were to bring an action, and it's usually going to be a citizen or some other person suing, saying you shouldn't have done this thing, and there were damages because of it, at that point, there's a really interesting question of law for the judge, and then probably at the end of the day, a really interesting question of fact for the jury to determine whether or not there, one, is that personal liability, or whether the threshold is met for the case to advance on the question of personal liability, and then two, whether or not the factual question to the jury would be, was this person properly advised, and did they know that they couldn't do this thing, and they did it anyway? And then should there be personal liability, and what should that liability be? So it wouldn't be, it would further muddy the waters, I guess is the best way to say it. But it would be, again, me as a nerd and a government nerd, that would be a really interesting case to read about in the future. I hope it's not Lansing. Yeah, that would be challenging.
So then, in terms of the language that we're looking at here, with that potential problem existing, why would you support some of this language where you can go out and have those conflicting opinions, have that potential result?
If you're talking specifically about provision or section C, I think that it would be consistent with the way many municipalities handle it, in terms of allowing the council to hire the council to hire outside counsel. And I think, again, my feedback as it relates to this proposed language would just be to make that narrow. Not to the point of meaningless, but so that it's narrowly tailored to the functions of the council, so that it is limited, sort of like the language that's referenced in B and what Attorney Riwa was talking about with that section B. The fact that if the council has an attorney, that attorney is really only representing them on one of their core functions. And that would be the narrowing that I think makes sense in section C, so that it's really clear. There are circumstances where, yes, if the council believes that there is a legitimate conflict of interest between the council as a body and the mayor as the chief executive, then the council may hire an attorney to go down that path. I would invite a change to that extent, just because it clarifies it very much. Because I agree also with Attorney Riwa's reading that our charter language is it's not perfectly clear. It has been read and applied in a very certain way, and it's been done for a very long time like that, and I think that is more or less correct. But that's based on the language of our existing charter. And I think if there's a clear desire to modify that, that's okay.
Okay. One final question.
Sure.
Were you offended by the fact that we changed your name from Law Department to Office of City Attorney?
No.
No?
No,
Did you
I was
have to
not
change your
offended.
stationery?
No, it was.
If you even use it?
It's been, at some point prior to me being the city attorney, the law department started calling itself the Office of the City Attorney, and I don't know when or why necessarily. It has a different ring to it. I know that Clerk Swope refers to us as the law department out of a sense of comedy and out of a sense of obligation to the charter. But no, that's quite fine.
I'm glad we could bring it up to date then. So is there anything in the charter 4-304 regarding the Office of City Attorney that you would update, change, make recommendations?
Let me pull that up really fast. I don't think so.
Or add, even?
No, I don't know that I need to add anything. You grabbing it? I will say, I think that most of the duties that are laid out in the charter are consistent with the Home Rule City Act. They're consistent with revised judicature and penal code and all the various things that direct how the city, the legal things that a city can do. And I don't think there's any need to modify at least those pieces.
So everything's up to date, you believe?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at, so setting aside, no, 1.1 is the same, 0.2, 3, 4, 5. The 1 through 5 are the ones that we're, that I'm primarily thinking about, and that fairly captures what this office still does. I mean, and a lot of what it does. We prosecute a lot of criminal cases. We review a lot of contracts, resolutions, ordinances, bonds, everything, all the written documents where the city is concerned. And I think that's necessary for the city attorney. That's the corporate job of the corporate counsel. And then I think what we're talking about modifying here is 0.6. And I don't see an issue with 0.7 either. I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
Regarding settlement of civil litigation.
All right. Any other questions or comments? I'm sorry, you're out of questions. Commissioner Boyd.
Thank you for appearing. And I have one question for our attorney. Kristen, under the top language, proposed language on the removal of the city attorney, this doesn't refer to you necessarily, but I'm interested in knowing, like in B, we know that there are no communities that allow or authorize their city council to have a standing council to help them. I'm curious to know, this proposed language says that the city attorney may be suspended or removed by the mayor or by a vote of 2/3 of the city council. I'd like to know, is that standard operating procedure among other communities, or is that unique to us?
So I know the city of Detroit allows for removal by either the council or the mayor. You have to recall, most cities in Michigan are not strong mayor. They're city council, city manager, and so most are hired and fired by the council itself.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, would you please send us some of your proposed changes that you had talked about here tonight?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, and once we receive them, we'll go back through this language, kind of see if we want to amend something like that, and then we'll bring it forward again.
Sure.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time, both of you,
Yeah.
to come down.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was very, very helpful. And tell other department head people that would like to see them as well. They're all welcome. And it wasn't that bad, was it?
No, you were all quite nice.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. back to the agenda, if I can find it. Audit. Yeah, if we could move to, I was looking at Article 4. Section 2, this is item number, dealing with Article 2, Section 2-104. This would be the per diem issue and the payment. I know I'm bouncing around a little bit. This would be Article 2. It would be, I think it's page 42, or mine might be 44, 42, somewhere in there. No. I got it from what I received on Friday. Gee. Does everybody have it?
Yep, it is 42.
Okay.
So,
So what page did you have?
I have 42.
Oh, there we go.
So-
Okay. There you go.
This memo is the same as it's been for a little while. I think the commission kind of put a pin in this, but there had been discussion about changing the structure of pay for the city council to at least be partial per diem. During the course of that conversation, it had come up that there was concern about there being sort of equitable distribution of committee assignments among the charter, among the city council members, and what, if anything, in the charter can or could be done. So this is circling back to that discussion. It has some proposed language in there based on the discussions that you all had. Again, when we look at whether you want to add additional language to the charter about committee assignments, I'm looking on page 44 here. There is some proposed language there. I will note it's not typical that charters get to that level of granularity about who, standing committees and how many can be on there and things like that. And I did have a concern to the extent that there is a limit on there that could actually prevent additional standing committees from being developed, or at least pose a problem if it's tied to pay. And then the proposed language for actual, I'm looking on page 45 through 46, we did develop some proposed language that could allow for reconsideration and kind of revamping the city council's pay to be in part on a per diem basis. And I think, I'm not sure if, I think we need to hear from the commission whether this is something you're still interested in pursuing, and if there's any changes into the language that you would like. A lot of this is still sort of open to additional drafting if you want any changes to anything in either of these provisions.
Commissioner Bauer and then Boyd.
One question, the way the charter is now, if the city council wanted to change to a per diem compensation system package, could they do so?
Well, the local officers' compensation commission is the one that sets the salary.
Right.
So I think it would have to come from them, and then the city council would have the ability to sort of approve or disapprove that recommendation. So
But the city council could request the compensation board to look at that, couldn't they? I mean, if they really wanted a different system of compensation, and then the compensation commission would have the authority to recommend that. And
yeah, I'm just looking through the language here. I wanted to see if it actually used the word salary, but the current language says the city shall by ordinance determine the compensation. Let's see, compensation. Let me pull the, y'all talk amongst yourselves. I want to double check the current language, but my concern, I just want to see if the word salary is used in the current language, but let me look at that and I'll get back to you.
Because I guess just in a state, I mean, if that's the case, I maintain my position that we stay the way we're doing it, that there would be the authority, the city council could then request that. So, I think, unless it's stated salary in the current charter.
So is there a motion? Okay. So if we go to, so we don't have any language before us. So if we go to 2-104, compensation of officers, if the feeling of the body is not to get into the whole per diem change, then I think we should just go through, and Kristen, I would ask you this, should we just go through point 1, 2, and 3 if we're going to leave it the same? Or would you have additional corrections?
Let me just take a quick look at what is currently in existence.
Oh, yeah, we're not going to do that. Right.
Yeah, so current language does not use the word salary, so I think it is possible that it could be redone. It doesn't necessarily need to be done in the charter. It could be done consistent with charter through ordinance and through the elected officers compensation commission. Yeah.
So
You're talking about point 2, right?
we're talking about the entire 2-103, but she was referencing point 2. I mean, so if we wanted to move forward and maintain our current system, we would just approve those 3 subsections.
Sorry, I was still looking.
So we should just, if we're going to maintain our current system, we would just go through the approval of these subsections?
Yeah, as is, that would be fine.
I mean, is that what everybody is interested in doing? Okay, so what we'd need is a motion to approve 2-104.1.
I so move.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, passes. Point 2. Been moved and supported. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Point 3. Been moved. Support. Is there any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes. So that'll take care of that section. Okay, so at this time, in terms of some of the matters that we had before us tonight, just to review with regards to the internal audit and that section, we will be getting some information back from the audit committee and take that up at a later date. As to the city attorney's office, we're going to expect some information coming from that office, and we'll take that up as soon as possible. The Office of Sustainability language that we have in front of us tonight, I had asked for some information regarding costs. I haven't gotten it, so could we put this off for like 1 week and see if I can get some information? I don't think there's going to be any, but I just want to make sure. Okay.
Commission Chair, do we have language in front of us on the Office of Sustainability?
Yes, it was a March 28th letter, Article 4, Article 5, Sustainability. I have page 48.
Thank you.
So, which one?
For Article 2, and they say not to address the issue of Section 3, 102.6.
Got it. So does everybody have the sustainability piece? Okay, so we'll bring that back up at the next meeting for approval. And then there's a question going back to Article 2, the compensation, and then there was Article 3, which was the assignment of council members to committees.
Page 44. In our packets. It's not in.
It's not in my packet, but in your packet, it's 44.
Okay, I got it.
So we've had this discussion. This was about the number of appointments or membership on council committees, trying to limit that. So there's some equity there. Does anybody have, Councilmember Washington?
If it's not a matter of pay, if we're not going to go to per diem, I don't think it matters, and I think that the council can deal with this in their own rules and decide how they want to do it.
Okay.
I don't think it needs to be in the charter. There are reasons that some people are on lesser or more boards, and we don't need to discuss that.
Other questions, comments? Is that the general feel? Okay, so we'll let that go. I'm sorry? Okay, I think that is,
So we're going to back to original.
Right.
yes, we'll leave it unamended. So I think unless, the only other item that we had received information on was 5-103, appointment of board members. As you know, at our last meeting, and this is section, or subsection .8, we had decided that we were going to leave the commission, or the composition of each board as an 8-person membership. 3 will be at large, 5 will be from the various wards. And then I think Chris is proposing that we put the language that you have in front of you that would stagger the terms, or when the terms would begin. Chris?
And it's on page 40. What I did is updated the years so that the 1st through 4th wards are on the same cycle that they are currently on. And then currently there is 1 at-large board member that is up each year. Since there would be 5 wards and 3 at-large, it would necessarily need to change. So there would be, so I put the 5th ward on the same cycle as the 1st ward, and then the other, the 3 at-large follow the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th ward. So it's just a proposal. I mean, I just wanted to get something down that you could look at and use or not.
Commissioner Washington.
I have a question with the way that these are appointed right now. I don't know why the mayor appoints and the council vets. Frankly, I would rather see the council perhaps do the ward, do those, and maybe the mayor do the at-large, or the council actually appoint and the mayor vet. Because too many times, and I've seen it through the years over and over and over, the mayor uses these appointments for political favor, and he also uses it for people that he wants to run for council, he or she, and they stick them on a board so that they can put it in their campaign, and it just isn't, in my opinion, ethical, and it lacks integrity. So I would, and it happens all the time. So I just would like to maybe find a different way to not have the mayor necessarily stack the boards, and then on top of that, attempt to stack council.
Madam Vice Chair.
Yes, but right now, we're dealing with just a specific issue, right? Just the timing of it.
Yep.
So, yeah, so that's another.
But just
Right,
as
I
we
get
go
that.
through that, I want
Yeah.
people to think about this,
Yeah.
because it doesn't have to be that way, and we can get the politics out of it.
And then may I ask another question, just for clarity? So right now, you're saying that the wards aren't appointed, I've always been appointed by my council member.
No, you
So
weren't.
go ahead.
You were advised to the mayor by your council member.
No, I was on the
Just
Board
a
of
second.
Ethics, so it's different.
Oh,
Commissioner Adam Simon was on the Board of Ethics, and
Okay.
that one board is an exception in the current charter. The ward members are appointed by
Okay.
city council at the recommendation, traditionally at the recommendation of the ward member, and then the at-large members of the Board of Ethics are appointed by the mayor without council confirmation. So that board is an outlier, and
Okay.
that's spelled out in
I
the
didn't
current
know that.
charter.
It's interesting.
Commissioner Boyd.
So just again, for clarification, so we're looking at Article 5,
Dash
103.8.
103.8.8. Yep. That's the only thing. And I have it on page 40.
And are you going to want that vote tonight?
This is just for
Want that vote today?
This is what we're taking up right now.
Okay.
Just for
You-
the term.
Just for the term?
We're not deciding how they're.
Are we talking about term limits tonight?
No, we're just talking about,
Just
these are
asking.
when the appointments will come up.
Okay.
That one.
Is there a motion? It's been moved and supported. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes. Okay, that's all we got for tonight. I think we've hit everything, correct? Is there anything else?
Do you want to mention when you're going to let them know?
Oh, yeah, we did, yeah, when we get down
Okay.
on the remarks.
So, remarks, yeah.
Yep. Okay, now we're to
Public comment.
public comment. Can't find my.
Okay, we have Loretta Stanaway. Let's see. She passes. She was the only one that had signed up for the second session here.
Okay, council member remarks? Go ahead, Commissioner Bauer.
Just a question. We had talked about a meeting next week.
Yes, I was going to get to that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, we did you give me? So we did get the results, and it looks like most everybody would have definitely a quorum. There's a couple of question marks, but starting next Tuesday and every Tuesday thereafter, we would have a meeting. I will get you these results. And Commissioner Dowd, is that, you're going to miss the meeting or you're going to be partially? Going to be late? Oh, okay, got it, sorry.
So will we meet at our regular time?
Regular time, 6:30 Tuesday? Here. Commissioner Bauer.
Yeah, and I will have to miss Tuesday. I had something that I really can't change, but I can make the rest of the Tuesdays, but I wanted my colleagues to know that I won't be able to be here.
I'll get the complete list out to you later this week, but we'll be meeting next Tuesday for sure, 6:30. Oh, see, okay. Yeah. All right, does anyone else have any comments? Hearing none? We're adjourned, thank you. Thanks, everyone.